Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to another session of the Leadership Series. And in this session, we have Mr. Hari Menon, who is the co-founder and CEO of BigBasket. And in conversation with him is the Dean of Bitsong, Dr. Ranjan Banerjee. My name is Narottam Kishore, and I'm Head of Admissions and Outreach team at Bitsong. Before we start the session, let me explain the format of the sessions. So the session will be in the conversation mode where our Dean, Dr. Ranjan Banerjee, will be having an interactive session with Mr. Hari Menon. And that conversation will go for 40 to 45 minutes. And in the last 15 to 20 minutes, we'll have Q&A. So if you have any questions, please type your questions in the Q&A box, and my colleague Sampurna, she will be taking up those questions, and she will be asking those questions on your behalf to Mr. Menon. So that's the format we'll have, and we'll close this session at 7 p.m. So that's how we will follow the format of this session. Now, Mr. Hari Menon, he's a co-founder and CEO of BigBasket, India's largest online grocery store and supermarket. The company has made a remarkable turnaround during the pandemic, from the verge of collapse to 100% growth, with annual gross sales touching $1 billion US. Last year, between the Janata curfew of 22nd March to full lockdown 25th March, BigBasket lost 80% of its delivery staff. Its sales fell from 2 lakh delivered orders on a daily basis to just 28,000 delivered orders. During that time, Mr. Hari Menon and his team worked frantically with a number of authorities, right from the central government to all the state governments, to all the local authorities, and to even the police departments in numerous cities to open up the closed supply chains. Then they went in for one of their largest recruitment drives ever to fill up nearly 80% of the delivery posts by forging over 50 partnerships with government and private companies, as well as industry associations, to temporarily hire their jobless staff. Within 18 days, over 12,000 new employees were recruited and trained. The desperate attempt was to claw back what they had swiftly lost in a fortnight, what they had painstakingly built up since 2011. But such hard work never ever goes without its full reward. Last month, Tata Group acquired a majority stake in BigBasket in a deal valued at more than $1 billion. An alumnus of BITS Pilani, Hari Menon, has both been a CEO and a serial entrepreneur of several companies, including India's first online plus offline e-commerce chain, FabMall or FabMart, much before Flipkart and Amazon started its operation in India. What was his journey to entrepreneurship? What challenges did BigBasket face during the pandemic? What does he think are some of the mistakes young entrepreneurs make? In conversation with him is the Dean of Bitsong, Dr. Ranjan Banerjee. Over to you, Ranjan.
Thank you so much, Narottam, for that introduction. And let me just add one more thing for the audience, that Hari is a member of our governing council of Bitsong and is therefore a key part of our journey going forward as we grow Bitsong. He's a supporter and passionate champion. Thank you, Hari, for agreeing to do this. I know that with all that is happening with the business, it may not have been easy for your time. Let's just get started and in the conversation. And a quick question for you: could you talk a little bit about your journey from BITS Pilani to becoming an entrepreneur? Were there some key milestones? What was the journey you had? How did you finally take the call? All yours.
BITS Pilani, I have always believed, Ranjan, is that BITS Pilani is a great ground for entrepreneurs, and I'll tell you why. We have quite a few entrepreneurs from there. Of late, of course, a lot from IITs. A couple of things that drives this, and I'm starting from there. Just two things, actually, if you ask me. One, the institute doesn't have a concept of attendance. Okay, so right at that early stage in life, you are left to a university, to an institute which is far away from your homes, and in the middle of a desert, and you're left with the choice of whether to attend class or not, right? And if at that point you now made up your mind as to, I will work through the benefits of it, then you kind of do well. It actually drives entrepreneurship in you. It tells you, now you're free to do what you want. Choose the path you want, right? and you have to do it on your own. Those days we had very little parental support. Very little parental support. Support was there. I mean, I'm saying from an education standpoint. I don't think parents even understood, what one was doing. It's a lot more engaging these days, right? I've been to my youngest son is also a bit sin, and I've been to his college, I think probably 10 times or 20 times. I think my parents came there only once. Long journey coming there. Not that they were not keen on you, but education was not something they could value add on. So you left right there and choose, and you got to choose to decide whether to go to class or not, right? Second, you had a choice of choosing what you will do for that year, right? You had a choice to decide how many years you will take to kind of get out. There was some basic minimum, but you could sit and say that I will do 2 courses this year, I will do 5 courses, I'll finish faster. Such flexibility, very little people had. And at that young age, if you have to start thinking of making such decisions, it's the starting point of entrepreneurship, where decision making starts there on difficult issues, which are not easy. Very tempting to just stay in your room and not go to class, right? Etc. So I think the whole journey started there, actually, Ranjan. And then, of course, I came out. The typical thing to do, which is worked in corporates, worked in companies, right through. And now when I reflect back, I realized that a good part of my working career was also in new initiatives and new businesses. I don't know how that happened, right? It's just a matter of chance. And when you are dumped into a new business in a company and to start growing that business literally from scratch, right? For example, in Wipro, I started in Wipro as part of the Apple Macintosh business. Apple Macintosh being sold to corporates was unheard of. Apple Macintosh was only sold to printing presses, to publishing houses, etc. Right? If you go to Tirupur, you'll find Macs there because it's meant for design. If you go to Sivakasi, you'll find Macs there because it's meant for printing. But if you go to a corporate CEO's office, you'll not find a Mac there. You'll find a Windows machine there, right? Mm-hmm. So Wipro had taken up the dealership or whatever it's called, distributorship, to basically sell Macs to corporates, mm-hmm. because there were already people doing it to the traditional sectors. Mm-hmm. Just an example of, it meant building a completely new business for Apple in India, right? Similarly, most of what was, what I was doing for some strange reason, and this is all accidental. This is got, it happened to be in areas which were new, and I somehow started enjoying it and figuring out there were failures. Of course, there are businesses that would never take off, and then you'd wonder what the hell is the organization going to do with you, right? Most organizations are quite ruthless about it, right? If a business doesn't work, the business shuts along with the people, right? So it's again a very, very risky proposition. When you get in there, of course, sometimes you don't have a choice to say no, right? Because that's a job you're asked. But many times you had a choice, and that's when you choose to decide the harder route, right? And it just helped, actually, frankly, Rajan. All this thing just kept adding up, and finally, it was the stint in Planet Asia, which was part of the Michelin Group. It was India's first internet services company. And frankly, till we're talking about e-commerce technology and right now and all that, that was, I think, 1997 or 1998, when that was the first time that I had an email ID. For all my jobs before that, I never even had an email ID because it didn't exist. And, if you have to send something from one place to another, you got to write on a piece of paper. It is called an inter-office memo, IOM. And drop it into a pigeonhole that says Calcutta, Madras, Chennai, whatever, and then it will reach the next day. So that evening you're free. There's nobody to bother you. There's no concept of an email or WhatsApp to kind of pain you and figure out. So life was very, very different. Journey to entrepreneurship started again. It was not through any inspiration. It was not through anybody who inspired me, because at that time there wasn't any entrepreneurship. There wasn't concepts of people building companies. I'm talking 99. There was one person who actually, sold this company. He sold it to the Satyam Group.
India.
Yes. And that was the first time that the world in India saw somebody selling a company and making money. Okay. And I'll just come to that, right? In just a minute. So essentially, we were in Planet Asia, and there was a multinational bank that was basically building India's first payment gateway. Can you imagine? We were in an internet services company trying to sell websites to people, and there wasn't a payment gateway. Okay. So we were pitching to this multinational bank, saying that, we can build it for you, because we are an internet service company. There were other companies like software companies like Wipro Technologies and all that, all bidding. And in that conversation, one of the things that the person who was leading that business and leading that piece said that, listen, what are we going to do with the payment gateway if we don't have somebody to use it? So we should also have an e-commerce site. If you don't have an e-commerce site, what's the point in building it? So what we will do as a bank, also build an e-commerce site, so that completes the whole cycle, right? Because you have a payment gateway, there is nobody to use it. And I think a few days they got a SOS from somewhere saying, listen, please remember you're a bank and you're not an e-commerce company, right? And so essentially that project of building an e-commerce site along with the gateway went off. So the bank was left high and dry. The bids had come. They're actually starting to decide whom to choose. And that was the moment of truth, because it was me and my colleague who was the CEO of the company, and I was the chief operating officer. Both of us were on that call when this gentleman told us that, listen, the project to build the e-commerce site is called off. And now you're wondering what to do. That was the moment of truth. It was a 14-story, 15-story building, Prestige Meridian, MG Road, Bangalore. We took the lift, came down, and we looked at each other and said, did we hear something? And both of us heard the same thing. And that was the opportunity that we had right there to start something and set up an e-commerce company. You know what we did? We took the next lift up. And we told him, see, listen, do you think that if you find somebody for you to do it, I mean, you'd be open to partnering with them? And they were saying, absolutely, not just partnering, we may even invest. We may even want to put in some money. Golden words, right? Just imagine. And that accidental it was. That was the start of FabMart. We came down, went back to our company, told our respective bosses and, saying, we are off. And this is 99. And that's how my first journey started. So it had really nothing to do with anybody inspiring me. Fundamentally, very accidental. And I think we just got lucky, in that sense. So that's how FabMart started.
And even that luck happened over a period of time, right? So two very interesting themes. One is that as a student, if we treat you as somebody who's responsible for your learning, we sow the seeds of entrepreneurship. Second is you've talked about the role of accidents. I'm a great believer in this role of accidents. How do you retain the positivity and self-confidence to take a plunge when that plunge is clearly not fashionable at that point in time, right? So, do you think there's a journey you go through in terms of your own confidence before you can do that? And just any thoughts on that one?
Oh, yes. That's the toughest part, Ranjan, is that how do you now, you've chosen to say, listen, this is a path I can take. Now, how do you push that ahead, right? There's so many obstacles. My first obstacle was my family. We've come from a family which has never seen business before, never, right? So the whole challenge first was to go there, go back home, talk to parents, talk to in-laws, talk to my wife, of course, which is the most important thing for me to do. And that process took a week. The decision took a few minutes, right? The process to go past a few hurdles, in life, and that impacts self-confidence, at points in time, because then you start wondering, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? I think we just were so convinced that we should take a shot, right? I had realized, and that's the good thing that happened in the past during my career, right? So anything new that you start in a company, so your intrapreneurial journey is what helps, and that kept that confidence in both of us, right? Both of us had gone through that journey. Me and my other colleague my other co-founder, who's still my co-founder right now. And we just pushed it hard. After that, you just choose to say, listen, I need to make sure that all those hurdles I go through. And I was very lucky in some of those. Family kind of came around. Wife was very supportive, etc. So that hurdle we crossed, right? And then we had a few other things. And one of the things that I have as advice, lots of it actually, is all to do with that journey, largely, which is what we learned and executed in this journey. And I think that really helped us. And we'll get to that, Ranjan, when, whenever you're wanting to ask me those questions.
Yeah, so let me segue naturally and say, look, it's a 45-minute conversation. We'll run out even with the short list of questions that we had. So what did you learn from FabMart and FabMall that influenced BigBasket? If you can go to the BigBasket journey, but there were things that went well. In some senses, maybe it wouldn't be wrong to say that FabMart was the first wave of e-commerce in India, right? And BigBasket is in the second wave. But what did you learn from FabMart and FabMall that has affected the way you look at BigBasket?
Just two things, Ranjan, and two critical things. There are a few more, but I'll keep it to just the two most important learnings of mine in the journey from FabMart to BigBasket. First, I think getting an understanding of the ecosystem, it is so critical. When you start a company, it's absolutely critical to get a good understanding of the ecosystem that you are going to be playing in. We all get great ideas, Ranjan. We all have fantastic ideas. Ideas are scalable, ideas are profitable, etc., etc. If the ecosystem doesn't support you, you're finished. Classic example of what happened to us. When that sale happened, no, everybody thought, Abhi, this is like, $100 million, $200 million is like, it's so easy to make. Somebody just sold a company, right?
Which sale are we talking about? The FabMall sale? Or the BigBasket?
No, I'm talking about the, I'm talking about the sale to Satyam,
okay.
the India World sale.
Right.
I'm just talking about how the ecosystem kills you, right? And not having understood it kills you, rather, right? So we started FabMart. So FabMart started, we got money, Reliance was the first investor, all that happened and all that started. You're building an internet business. First, you're working on dial-up lines. Seriously, Ranjan, you could actually have a cup of tea and come by the time the page loaded.
Right.
So you had to do many things from a technology standpoint to make sure that there is some semblance of speed. You're running a business on the internet, right? And the infrastructure is dial-up. There's no broadband. You're running a business on the internet where online payments are critical. Not a single bank had a payment gateway. So what you had to do is that customers would read out the card number and the CVV number to you, and you would have a battery of people in your office sitting there and authorizing that payment. Next morning, headlines of the newspaper said, most unsafe thing in life is e-commerce. Naturally.
Yeah, you're reading it
because
out.
Then there were a few frauds, there were a few things that happened and people just put two and two together, right? There was no organized good logistics mechanisms, logistics systems. The e-commerce technology itself was very new. 4 things I've told you, Ranjan. All the 4 were not available and you're trying to build a company on the internet.
Right.
How will it ever work? There were hundreds of companies that got built that time just because of that one sale. I remember once traveling from Santa Cruz Airport to Nariman Point, and I counted 83 hoardings. Photo.com, mother.com, this.com, that.com, and all of them used to get funded. Right? 1999, 2000 was a bloodbath. The entire bubble burst. It was a bloodbath, right? And that was the end of e-commerce and internet businesses for 5-6 years.
Right.
So the important learning here is that, you must understand the ecosystem very, very well before you start a business. And this is hundreds of companies died because nobody even thought of figuring out, is my ecosystem ready? One. The second, and I'll cover it quickly, is so that business, we said we had money, so we continued. A lot of people closed, right? Everybody, young people, just out of college, 1 year out of college, startup. Right? Fortunately, we had some gray hair because we did it when we were, I think, 38 or 39 years old. Not gray hair, but a little older than the rest of the people who had actually got into it. Is that we kept that business going, and at some point we were brave enough, in that situation where there's no ecosystem, even start grocery, which was the most complicated business, but we started grocery also. सब try करते हैं, we just do everything. So because of it, we had built warehouses. Grocery can only operate in that model because you have to deliver the same day, right? You can't do a marketplace, kind of model. So we had built warehouses. Big Bazaar came to us. We said we should leverage this and let's start a physical business. And to cut the story short, this happened on a flight between Pune and me, between the three founders. And we were sitting on that flight, and then we said, listen, now what do we do? This business is going nowhere, right? We have to do something. So two of them said, listen, let's go physical. Great opportunity. Modern trade doesn't exist. The only chain is Food World, right? There is no other Nilgiris. There is no other modern trade chain. All our Kirana mom and pop shops, I think there's great space there. We built warehouses. We've got all of it ready for the online business. Simply pivot. Those two said that. I told them, listen, no chance. Let's give it one more try. How can we do this? We can't give up that business. Half a mind to open the door of the aircraft and jump. Emotional attachment of an entrepreneur can kill you. And the concept of not pivoting can kill you. So we discussed it in a 1.5 or 2 hour flight, right? And I was like livid, angry, typical passionate, entrepreneur who's right now not thinking rationally. But two of them said, nahi karna hai. Democratic country, 2 versus 1. I lost the battle. And today I'm so happy I lost it. Because after that, we built a physical chain. And then there was no looking back. That chain grew. We kind of merged into a company called Trinetra. It became a very large entity by 2007. 210 stores, got great valuation from the Aditya Birla Group, and got acquired 100%. And those stores are the stores that are called More now. That one flight, if we had chosen not to, we would have been branded failed entrepreneurs in the first journey. So two things: ecosystem, pivot when you have to. You can't get emotionally attached to businesses, right? You have to find opportunities to pivot based on leveraging what you already built. That's my two biggest learnings for BigBasket. And the first thing we checked in BigBasket is the ecosystem ready? It was absolutely ready. Flipkart had made sure that, transactions are happening, things were fine. That checkbox was so important.
So just for our students, when you talked about the ecosystem, what are the elements of the ecosystem that Flipkart had got ready, which made a huge difference?
So basically you had very good, strong payment gateways, right? Payment system was done. You had broadband that was in. You had smartphones. You had tablets. You had multiple methods. This is not 2006 and 2007. I'm talking 2011. In 2006 to 2010, Flipkart went through the same struggle. It was really in 10-11 that they started showing transactions, right? That businesses were starting to boom at that time. And that's precisely because all these elements of the ecosystem were all ready, right? And that was the cause and reason to scale. That was the reason for more companies to come in and succeed, unlike what happened in 99-2000.
Right. So, Hari, it's a fascinating story because I can link this directly to what, I had the benefit of teaching the BigBasket case, and then I, interviewed many people, read the book, did all of that. And one of the things I found remarkable is you all were always saying we are a retail company that's leveraging technology. And somehow your journey seems to validate that. But could you elaborate on that? What do you think is the difference between saying, I'm an e-commerce company which has offline, vis-a-vis saying I'm a retailer, period, and I leverage technology? How does that affect your thinking?
Yeah, Ranjan, such very, very good question. I find many times people, are not projecting the businesses the way it should be. They're projecting it for valuation. They're projecting it for fashion, being fashionable. And seriously, that is something that I've found in many, many young entrepreneurs used to come to me, right? So I'm technology and e-commerce, I'll get money faster. Now, if you're only doing it for that purpose, fine. But that's not the only purpose, right? So if I told myself I'm a technology company, I would never, ever get people who know how to buy rice. I would never, ever get people who know how to deal with farmers. I am a grocer at heart. I am a grocer, enabled by technology and process, heavily enabled by process and technology. If I don't call myself a grocer, my company would be full of software technologists. And I would find technology to scale, which means I will not build all that. Instead, I'll go and buy it from a retail store. So what can technology do? I can help you make the business light. Right? I can tie up with stores and they do all that stuff and all I have to do. So I build technology. Those models just don't work because you're on a tight gross margin regime. Companies tried that, failed. Many companies tried that, failed. What is called the hyperlocal model? It was called actually. So only way grocery works is through an inventory model. You have to have control on inventory. And so, you know, if you didn't call yourself a grocer, today I have a very, very strong merchandising team. I have experts who know how to buy rice, how to store rice, how to store potatoes, how to store onions. I deal with 18,000 farmers every day. I have 47 collection centers across the country. I have about 150 agronomists who are working with these farmers and helping them improve productivity. None of it uses technology, right? But today, everything we do is tech-enabled.
Right.
So I'm a grocer at heart, Ranjan.
No, I just think it's brilliant. And I think, it's the grounded aspect of BigBasket that I've admired, how much you look at execution. So since Narottam brought up the COVID struggle and the turnaround, and I've read your interviews and you talk a lot about innovative hiring and culture, right? So if you could talk about the turnaround and specifically talk about hiring and culture and the role it played, I think that would be a very fascinating kind of story.
Yeah, sure. We hired like crazy. We innovated like crazy. And that is where culture of an organization starts playing. Rajan, culture for us is deeply ingrained in us. Culture for BigBasket, I've done sessions on culture, right? And culture for BigBasket is not something that is put up on the reception note board. Mission is not put up there. Actually, we don't have one. My deep belief is that the organization succeeds when you imbibe and culture the culture of the organization and value systems, and it becomes part of your DNA. Right? We have things like our screensavers are all our culture. I mean, that's because we want to drive it in. We have it put it across all in the company, but it's not put up on my reception board. It's not meant for outsiders. I have not built culture to show people, but I want it to be part of the organization, make organizations benefit. Maniacal focus on customers is my first element of culture. Now I execute that. Customer satisfaction, we die and live by. People know this guy, Hari Menon, sits till 2 a.m. and talks to customers. Right? And people feel very sorry for me. I said this, I'm trying to set an example for you guys and you're feeling sorry for me, right? I'm just joking about it, but I think this DNA is there, right through. Sense of ownership, right? Sense of urgency and speed. All this helped us during that period. Most importantly, I think I realized that here is an organization that is truly, truly resilient. People just stood up to the cause, right? The entire organization. And the only thing that drove that, Ranjan, was our culture, right? And if culture wasn't ingrained, none of that would have happened. Hiring people, all that innovation we did, tying up with people who are throwing away jobs. And the innovation there was not just hiring them. The innovation there was that, listen, I will hire them and give them back to you when you need them. So that made them comfortable, right? It's not innovation, but people started thinking of different ways to make the other party comfortable, because one didn't know how long the lockdown is going to be, right? So when your business starts, you want those people back, but right now you're willing to give it.
So you found jobs for your people in the slack period, basically, and said we'll take them back.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
So we found people who are out of jobs and went to those companies and talked to them. We'll take them. And I said, when things get normal, you can take them back.
Right.
I think people just thought on their feet, right? And what drives all that is basically culture. People just stood up to the occasion with speed, with sense of urgency, with sense of ownership, and with a maniacal focus on making sure we still service customers who are completely stuck and didn't know what to do. All these 4 elements that I just talked about, Ranjan, is part of our culture. We have little badges, cards that we carry in our pockets, which actually have.
We have all these 4 elements.
Yes.
So the reminder. So Hari, I'll take one last question on culture, and then I will move to kind of entrepreneurship and what students need to learn, which is that you talked about culture. So I've always observed that culture is easier when you have 20 employees, right? Because then they're seeing a Hari Menon and you're demonstrating. When you move from 20 to 500, how do you keep that culture going?
Yeah, that culture has to go to the next level, right? It has to get demonstrated by Hari Menon. It has to get demonstrated by my MC. It has to get demonstrated by my operating council. There are 3 councils we have, right? And if it gets ingrained at the operating council level, which are about 70, 80 people, then I'm done, right, through the organization. So it's all about talking to them, making and ensuring that these elements are spoken about all the time. See, this customer focus now has become I'll give you an example of how we did it to say 3,000 people, from 20 people. We have these reward and recognition programs, Ranjan, and I'll take a quick minute on it. And so my first program, I remember 2011, right? We had about 1,000 odd people in the warehouse. So the first thing I went up and I asked people, who pays you your salary? Right? So Hari Menon pays, HR pays, HR guy's name they took. Not a soul took the name of a customer, of the customer. Today, Ranjan, when there are 25,000 people or 20,000 people, if I ask this question, in chorus, people say customer, in chorus. And there's a reason behind it. They know that every guy in this company only talks customer. That's the only way. There is no magic in this, Ranjan. It is about owning it and communicating it. And it is, again, repeat, it is not meant to be displayed in the reception.
It's demonstration, it's simplicity, it's reinforcement, it's behavior. I think it combines all of those things. So I'm going to segue, Hari, I could keep going for 1.5 hours. We just scratched the surface, right? But I'm going to keep going on 2 things. One is, you are the member of a BITSOM governing council. We have many students who want to be entrepreneurs. We have created an entrepreneurship specialization. What would you want a student who wants to be an entrepreneur to learn during the student phase? I mean, the point on attendance has been very well noted and registered, but over and above that, what do you want them to learn?
I'm not going to talk attendance, but yes, I am going to talk about what I think, and this has been playing in my mind when I see so-called incubation cells in many, many institutes, right? Which I think don't deliver and doesn't do its job. I'm just being very, very candid, Ranjan, on this. And hence I've been thinking, how the hell do you make this work, right? And I think I have an answer. I have a thought process, right? That I'm very keen to share right now. And also, Ranjan, execute as we go along, right? And figure out how we're going to make it happen, right? And this is just thoughts in my mind right now. Let me start by saying, what are those 3 critical things that are required before starting a company, right? There are only 3 critical things in my opinion. Everything else falls in place. And before I start that, I think everything else we teach in MBA is useful. And that is what you will teach. Marketing, finance, OR, all the normal subjects that you go through are useful for an entrepreneur, certainly useful for an entrepreneur, because he needs to understand concepts, understand basics, do some case studies, understand organization. So whether he's working in a company after that or whether he'll start, those are very useful. So keep that continues. But I think if you want to become an entrepreneur, you got to become one. You got to actually become an entrepreneur, right? And there are 3 things I believe what are critical for anybody who wants to become an entrepreneur. One is you need a great idea, right? You need a great idea. Ideally, Ranjan, the idea must be as current as possible so that it is real, it is today, right? It's a problem you're trying to solve today, right? And then you build it so that you want to make sure it's scalable and it's profitable. that's the whole concept of that idea. I'm keeping it short, but the idea has to be scalable, has to be profitable, it has to be ideally current, today's problem. Futuristic problems, you should still do it, but then those need to be handled differently, right? You invest now for a futuristic solution, but okay, that also should be done. But I'm saying ideally take a current today's problem that you want to solve, right? That's the first thing, that you really want to do. I'm coming back to the same thing. Second thing is gauge the ecosystem, right? Now for this idea, really you don't need anything. I mean, people will sit in their rooms, people will sit in college, people will sit in the library, people will sit in the canteen and put together this idea, right? And you can take a piece of paper, take the computer, write down and basically figure how it is scalable, right? How is it going to turn profitable, right? That's one thing that you can do without too much help, right? You can take help, you can ask people, you get alumni, you ask some entrepreneurs that you can get. But what you got to validate first is the ecosystem. Now for this, Ranjan, it is critical that the incubation cell doesn't leave the students just to talk to either professors there or alumni or some ex-entrepreneurs. You need to bring right there, a research company, a couple of research companies, right? People who are into researching, people who are into going and talking to customers and hence validating your idea and validating the ecosystem, right? So you need a research company that the institute needs to tie up with. And this can't be something that the incubation cell is doing by just letting students do it the way they want it. It has to be a very structured process. The whole science of asking questions, and Ranjan, you know that best, right? There's a science behind it. Simple example. If you ask somebody, is the price good? They will say no, because they want a good price, right? You need to get the right answer from them. So, I mean, this is a very, very simple example, right? Which I keep giving people, that why there is a science behind research, right? And that science comes from research organizations who have spent IMRBs of the world, who have spent time in designing questionnaires, in going and asking the right questions to customers. This is essential, right? And that is how you will validate the ecosystem, right? You should ask the question, what is it that you will do to buy from me? And then the answer of price must come from the customer rather than asking. Simple mistakes we make, right? One, ecosystem, validation through research, right? So RedSeers of the world, IMBarbs of the world must be there, available to that entrepreneur when you're setting up the company while you're studying, right? Number two, most important, and the biggest mistake people make is on this, Ranjan, is capital, right? And it is such an easy thing to say, but most people err here. And let me tell you why. My belief, Ranjan, is that you must raise enough capital to run a business, right? Get more money than what you need. So what does that mean? You will dilute more. And that people are not willing to do, right? So people are saying, when you start a company, I will hold my stake. That's more important for me. And so I'll take little money initially, right? And so you are all the time only fundraising and not building the company. Fundraising is the most difficult part of this journey. It is the most humbling, humiliating, whichever word you want to use. You literally fall at the feet of these people, right, for them to start reacting. And that's the way it is, right? And finally, of course, the person is investing here, so he needs to ask you all the right questions. He needs to make sure that he asks you tough questions. It's a hard journey, raising capital. And so my view always is raise capital for the long run. And the typical thing for me is anywhere between 3 to 5 years, ideally 3 years. 5 years is tough, right? But anything less than 3 years of your business plan, which you need capital for, if it's anything less, it's very risky, right? Don't start a business. Don't raise money for 6 months and say I'm holding stake. Because after 6 months, fundraise is a 6-month process. 6 months. Nobody gives you money like that, right? So it's important to get the venture capital ecosystem into the college, right? It validates business plans. It validates pitch. The pitch is the most important thing, Ranjan. Let me give you an example, right? when we started pitching for Big Basket, right? The last slide of our pitch was Webvan. You would have heard of this company called Webvan, which is one of the biggest grocery failures in the world. In 2000, during the 2000 bloodbath, one of the biggest failures was Webvan. Right. After that, no grocery company got funded. No grocery company, Ranjan, after that. That was our last slide in trying to prove why Webvan won't happen to us. And when we reached that last slide, we realized, oh, the face of these investors fall because you are seeing body language. And that's the point I'm making.
Ranjan. Of a failure at the end of the presentation, right?
We moved it to the first slide.
Right.
And that's what you learn by making 5 pitches. The VC ecosystem, Ranjan, must be in the college. And this is doable, right? And there will be a lot of good quality, high quality investors who will be willing to come because they know this college is producing and generating great students, right? And it's focusing on entrepreneurship very differently. They will come. And it's in Mumbai, right? It's so that ecosystem should come to the college. Today, funding, in ecosystem, let pile on to him and try and get money. He's come to college. Right? I mean, that's not correct. Right? So you got to get that ecosystem there. Number 3, it's not about ecosystem, it's the team, right? The most important thing is that, and you have to think of building your team, starting with your co-founder right in the beginning. And the co-founder is taken on trust. The most important aspect of your co-founder must be, you must trust him 100%. It's not skill. It's not skill will sab aa jayega. It's all fine. But when 2 people are going to have a journey for the next 15 years, the only thing that binds them is trust. You can't at any point in time keep sitting and thinking behind that somebody is going to, that your partner or your co-founder is going to keep worrying you, hassling you. Trust and find that person. Could be a friend, could be a colleague, could be whatever. The first thing that you got to have between the 2 of you is that, boss, listen, 15 years we have to trust each other. I'm not worried about skill. We will build those skills. We will always hire people who are better than us. I love Steve Jobs. He's my absolute inspiration. And the only big thing I learned from him was hire people who are better than you. But the co-founders must be built on trust. So 3 things, Ranjan, is basically post idea is your ecosystem, is capital, is the team, starting with your co-founders. Never build it alone and don't have too many.
No, so I think that's golden advice: ecosystem, capital, and team. And just your energy. We'd love to have you look at, come and talk to our class a little bit more often. And I will reach out to you for these ideas and how we can build this. There's a conversation with Pritesh also, which I'm having. And I think we want to make entrepreneurship a differentiator of this institution. And you'll be a valuable partner. I know there are many questions. I will come back at the end, Hari, to try to do a little bit of a recap. And maybe a final word for our students. But Sampoorna, I think there are many interesting questions in the Q&A. So would you like to kind of go and share some questions for Hari? I saw
yes. Thank you. It was lovely, as I keep saying, but I think for me, the biggest takeaway has been from everything that you spoke about, the metaphor that you used at the beginning, that you took the lift down from a 15-floor building, and then the next moment you took it up. I think that metaphor kind of resonates in everything you say, across your journey, and that will definitely stay with me. So moving on to some questions that we have, as Ranjan said, some are interesting. The first one is the fact that Shubh asks that, what are the pros and cons of doing an MBA and running a startup at the same time? You did talk about it in great detail just now, but if you were to give word of advice, then what would it be?
There are only pros in it. I can't think of a single con, seriously, right? The German education system is study, work, study, work, study, work, study, work, right? I spent time in the vocational education business in Manipal, in between my 2 startups, right? And that was the other ecosystem not being ready. India needed vocational education so badly. 18,000 ITIs. China built that whole ecosystem with 4,000 vocational training institutes. We had 18,000, 80% defunct, right? no value for a vocational certificate, right? So shaadi nahi hota hai with that. You have to go and do your BA, right? Only then you'll get married. So there was absolutely no legitimacy to it, right? The whole thing. But the funda is that in German, the German education system is all about study, work, and that's what I'm saying. You have to build your company while you're studying in the entrepreneurship school. We'll bring VCs there. We will bring research there. We will bring organizations there. We will bring entrepreneurs there. We will bring more Hari Menons there. You should build it right there. That's the only way you're able to translate what you're learning into something real and not the typical incubation cell, which is not real. I'm being very, very harsh on it, candid and harsh. I'm sorry, but that's what I've seen. And this is what I think is so important. So I don't see any con.
Yeah, and there is research also which says that businesses that have been built up on the side and then gone to scale, it moves very well. And we have an entrepreneurship track, Hari. So they can work on their venture as part of multiple courses. That is something that has been built in the design.
Thank you. The next one is there any way to learn about an ecosystem of a new business when a new product is launched? Because the entrepreneur might just lack the expertise to know whether this product will be a success or not. And you're a fan of Steve Jobs, so maybe you have the answer to this.
Great question. And that's why I'm saying you got to get research organizations in. You got to help that student with professional research. It is not me going and asking questions, right? And tomorrow, if Ranjan is able to tie up and we will support him, support we'll all support each other on it. If I can get IMRB there, right? If I can get RedSeer there, if I can get internet research companies there, right? To come and spend time, right? That's what you should do. And that's how you'll find out about the ecosystem. The people miss the ecosystem because they're trying to do it themselves. It is a science.
Yeah, and
that's what will make the difference.
So I think Hari has spoken about partners. I also think that you will learn structures to identify the players in an ecosystem. So that part is easy, but you still have to go out and do it. Either through a research agency, plus on top of that, I don't think there is anything that substitutes, Hari, for instance, sitting in a retailer's store for one day and seeing customers coming in and out, right? I mean, right? I mean, that real experience, I think, is very, very important. As the old Unilever story, Kela becha hai kya? A very, very kind of an important perspective. Sampurna, maybe we'll take 2 or 3 more questions before we can.
You did speak about the 1999-2000 bloodbath of the e-com industry, the .com, boom. Someone asks, Neha asks that, how did you keep your spirits high when things weren't going well? We are in the middle of the second wave of the pandemic. It is hard now. So word of advice there.
For us, it wasn't too difficult to keep our spirits high because we had money, right? That pivot is what drowned my spirits for a little while in that 2-hour journey, and then brought it back very soon because I realized that the battle I'd lost was the best battle I'd lost, right? So keeping ourselves alive was not that difficult. It was obviously, in the sense that the money that you had is not going to last you, very long, especially when a business is not really doing anything, right? There are no transactions happening. Everybody's scared to go on the internet because everything that they're reading, right? What we did there in some 4.5 years, I remember we did in some 4 months in BigBasket. And that's the difference in ecosystem, right? And that's what causes that whole thing. So we kept going. The important thing was that you have to find methods to leverage what you've done and pivot quickly, right? That is critical, and that will keep you going. If you find the right answer, you'll be cheerful. If you don't, I mean, bad luck.
Thank you. Someone asked, this is a question from Udit. He says that, do we wait for the perfect startup idea to come to our mind, or is like an idea that should keep evolving and changing, is it? So I think you nodded very well.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it will keep evolving. You should never worry about it. Never worry about it. Never worry about getting it right 100% first time. I mean, if that's your worry, you'll never start. You know, get the idea, right? Make sure that that idea is scalable version 1, right? And the investor will tell you whether version 1 is fine or whether version 2.0 bhi chahiye. He will tell you that. And that is why you need real investors. Right?
So, couple of questions, right? Like one that says that, how do you, so how for a young person, right? There's already a big basket, there's already a Grofers, there's already like JioMart and Amazon Fresh, etc., etc. So how can a dreamer then become a part of that ecosystem? Is there even, a possibility or iota of that dream coming true?
Of course, there is a concept called TAM, and that is ecosystem. See, so much that it's so critical, that piece to get it right? And you'll only get it right to the extent you can, right? But it's very important to invest. There's a concept of TAM, which is called total addressable market, right? The grocery business, the whole retail business in India is $1 trillion, $1 trillion today, whole retail business, right? 65% is grocery, $600 billion, right? Only 5% of that is modern trade. And only less than 1% of that is e-commerce. But that 1% which is e-commerce today has a company which is $1 billion, which is BigBasket. So because of the size of the market, right, it has more and more players should come in. The market grows faster. In markets with high TAM, more the players, faster it grows. Right? So when people ask me competition aa raha hai, kya karoge? I love, they just fall off their chair when I tell them that. I want more competition to come. And when there is more noise made in the market grows.
Degree grows.
Now, TAM is important. How do you get TAM? Through research. Research tells you size of the market. There are a lot of markets which are tiny and small. And there, if you have a crowded 4 or 5 players, don't touch it.
Suppose you have more questions. Otherwise, I think there are a couple that I can add. We can take any one more interesting question.
One more, which is Tejas asked the Alibaba story. When did Alibaba become interested and how did that happen? So the story behind it is what? And then Ranjan, over to you.
Got interested at the point in time where every company reaches a point where you need what is called strategic investors. You don't need financial investors, right? Because you've raised money from financial investors. Financial investors have a timeline to be with you because they have to close the fund, return the fund, etc., etc., etc. And all of that, right? While they really work with you closely, well, I don't want to talk about it right now because sometime in life I'm going to write a book which is called The Dark Side of Entrepreneurship. And the problem is if I write it now, nobody will invest in me. So I will write about it, right, at some point. Now the thing is that at some point in your journey, you need a strategic investor, and that strategic investor comes with deep pockets and stays with you longer. Typically, they are people who are leaders in the same sector. And that's how Alibaba came. Alibaba also scouts for people who are at that stage of investment, right? Which is either called PE investment or a strategic investment. So one is PEs can come in, which are large venture capitalists. They stay with you longer. Their funds' lives are longer, right? Or a strategic investor comes. That's how Alibaba came. And they liked what we were doing and invested in us.
Back to me, Sampurna?
Yes, over to you, Ranjan.
So, Hari, maybe a couple of things, and then I'll try to summarize and give you the last word. So I think, talking to you for what is now 54 minutes, what impresses me, and this is true for practically every entrepreneur I've met, there is a combination of energy and optimism that seems to characterize many an entrepreneur. Where does it come from?
Right from the heart, right? Seriously, Ranjan, that is the key driver of an entrepreneur, right? It is optimism, at the same time being real. You can get optimistic. The devil is in the detail, right? You have to, your strong foot on the ground is what you need to get optimism working with you, right? And, passion and risk taking just drives you there, because if that doesn't happen, the entrepreneur fails. That's why what you said is so true, right? People whom you've seen will have that trait. There's no other way to to take chances when you're 25, 28, 30, 34, whatever is there, your time, and throw everything that you have, good fancy jobs, passed out of BITS, right? And just dive into something which even would mean that at some point, all that you've earned might go away if you don't raise enough money and stuff like that. So I think it's, I don't know whether a college can create that, an institute can create that, or a family can create that, or a friend can create that. It just has to be within.
I think you can hire for it. You can look for it in students.
Of
If
course.
you look for students in there with that positivity and optimism, it is great. And maybe you can bring it to the surface a little bit, because there are some life experiences that build it. You're not born with it, right? This second question was around the pivot, and the pivot stories sound very good, right? But the trick is that at some point in time, you could pivot prematurely because you're in the struggle phase and get the timing wrong and give up a good idea. So how do you judge when it is right? And how do you judge when you need to stay in there and fight a little longer because maybe you just haven't got the model right?
I think that is not too difficult, Ranjan, because when would you want to think of pivoting is when your business is really, all my thoughts, thinking that I put behind it, for some reason it's not working. And there's no, just frankly, you might have done enough research, and that's the whole beauty of it, right? Which is that you can't think through everything, right? And as you keep going, and that is why capital becomes so critical, right? That in the middle of all this, fundraise doesn't become another headache for you, which is a deadly combination. So if that's kept aside, then you're able to think better. And fundamentally, you will time it when you're seeing no movement. So timing, I'm not seeing too much of issue. The worry I have is most people don't do it at that time because of sheer emotional attachment. Unfortunately, the other part of the breed of ours is that they get very emotionally attached with an idea and then they pivot late. And that's exactly what happened to me. It's an example I give everybody. I would have jumped out of that flight.
Fortunately, you were on a flight, right? I mean, so the cost of jumping out was high. So, just to summarize, it's been a great conversation. I'm going to go back to ecosystem, capital, and team. The importance of culture, the importance of energy, the ability to see opportunity in accidents, and just how grounded you are. To me, the fact that you're grounded, rooted in the business, passionate about the customer. I think there are more businesses and you will inspire many. But I have now a last request. Just think of 100 students who are listening to you. Many of them want to become entrepreneurs. Any parting advice for them?
The key parting advice that I've really started giving, and it actually, frankly, Ranjan, so a lot of people, it hurts a lot of people. They don't take it well. Is that, listen, it is a hard journey. Please don't, Ranjan, it's the flimsy side of it is that people think that I want to become an entrepreneur because I won't have a boss.
You'll have multiple bosses actually.
Yeah. So I step back and say, God, this can't be the reason for you to become an entrepreneur, right? And this doesn't come out directly, but it gets implied in multiple, I want independence. What independence will you get? You have 5 people on the board hounding you. It's worse than one boss, right? So it's a very, very hard journey, right? And I think you need to mentally prepare for it, right? Mentally tell yourself, this is not having boss. This is not independence. This is not, I can do what I want business. This is just not that. So it's hard, right? At the same time, it's not meant for the lighthearted anyway, right? So at the same time, you got to be optimistic with feet on the ground. The devil is in the detail. Data is critical, right? You have to orient your mind to become very, very data centric. And this is new. This wasn't there, Ranjan, maybe 20, 30 years back. Today, there is wealth of data, right? So your ability, and that's one thing the good education system teaches you, right? It teaches you the power of numbers. It teaches you the power of data, right? It teaches you to appreciate data. Then you get real solid true insights. So build your life around data. And don't overuse it, right? Don't keep throwing data at everything. So The devil is in the detail, right? Finally, you need to do those 3 things right. The biggest mistake that people make is don't get those 3 things right? And I am saying, if you don't get it right, please, for heaven's sake, don't start. It will bound to fail. And those 3 things are the most difficult, especially the capital piece. And this is not a business of raising capital for 3 months and 2 months and 1 month and saying, chalu karte hain. It is not. And so most times my advice to people is don't start. And so that they don't feel good about it, but that's the reality.
No, so Hari, thank you so much for your time. I think it's been a fascinating conversation.
I have one more point. Sorry,
Yeah,
I forgot.
sorry.
And I scribbled a few things. Is you have, as an entrepreneur, the single biggest quality you need to build in yourself is to be frugal. Most important thing, learn to live a frugal life, right? And that will take you a distance, including your money.
So great details, discipline, ECT, ecosystem, capital, and team. Great message, Hari. It's been a pleasure. Really, I have learned from this conversation, and we will have snippets shown, and we look forward to more interaction. But I think much larger, I look forward to working with you, to building more entrepreneurs from Bitsom, and I think that is going to be our challenge. Thank you so much, everybody, to all the attendees. Thank you, Sampurna. Thank you, Narottam, for making this happen. Thanks a lot, guys. That's all from us for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Hari.